This regression, I think, is going to blow your mind. It happened a few years ago, but I really wanted to tell you about it today, and I'll tell you why in a minute. So, a guy came to see me, and he was actually from Turkey, and he basically presented as somebody who was very spiritual, but he had a huge anger problem. And I think he may have been a violent person, and he really wanted to get to the bottom of his anger. So we went to his session, we went to a past life, and where he went was, he said, millions of years ago. I don't know if it was millions of years ago, but it was certainly a long time ago, and it was somewhere in the Mediterranean. And he described the beautiful, beautiful water, beautiful landscape, kind of dry, arid, what you would expect. I was imagining it to be around Turkey or Greece. And he lived on a little teeny tiny island with his lover, who he absolutely adored. He was a blue avian. Now, if you don't know what a blue avian is, you can look it up. I'm sorry, I'm not good enough at doing this to flash a picture for you. But they're tall, bird-like human creatures. He had blue skin. Part of his skin had scales on it. Part of it had feathers. And he had kind of a bird-like face. So he was also able to swim in the water and walk on land. He had claws for feet, but he had hands. It was kind of astonishing. And he wore gold necklaces around his neck. And he was a priest, and he lived on this little tiny island with his partner, who he absolutely loved so much. And they were guarding a sacred temple that people would come for miles and miles and miles around to come pray to. And this sacred temple was inside of a sort of a stone building. And you went inside, and there was a kind of a altar, and the altar had a huge eyeball, and the eyeball was made out of ocean, so that when you stared into the eyeball kind of waved around, and the part outside of the eyeball was sky. And it was behind a kind of a glass. There was a glass in front of it, and it was constantly moving. And people came from all over to worship this beautiful thing. And apparently people would sit in front of it and ask questions, and they would get blessings, they would get answers. It was considered very holy. So this poor man, his lover left him on the island, abandoned him, and he was abandoned there to protect this eye by himself. And I have to say, I've never been so scared in a session in all my life, because I told him to release the grief, but it really turned out to be anger, and he just started screaming from the bottom of his soul over and over again. I mean, it was terrifying. It was a session I was doing at my house in Maryland, and no one was at home, luckily, but I started to actually think my neighbors, who aren't even that close, were going to start getting worried that I was being murdered or something. So finally I said, you're going to have to stop making so much noise. Let's find another way to, release this anger. Anyway, he cooperated and stopped screaming. It really was kind of scary. Sometimes being a practitioner, got to have a little guts. Anyway, he released a lot of his anger, and he came to. And what was interesting was a couple of weeks later, I actually went on a trip to Greece. And I was in the marketplace, and I saw one of these. These are, if you know anything about them, they're called the evil eyes, and you find them all over the Mediterranean. And I can't help but think, I've tried to do some research and I haven't found any. I can't help but think that the origin of this baby was from the lifetime we went to. Just a theory I'm working on. Come work with me. My website is www.healingacrosstime. I do QHHT, which is a 5-hour session. I do BQH, which is a past life regression session online. And then I do a lot of shorter things, many, many different ways to work with me. So I love this work and I'd love to work with you. So I hope to see you sometime. Ciao.